Most people believe they're good at reading others. They trust a smile, believe a compliment, and assume kindness always comes from a good heart. But what if everything you've been taught about judging people is wrong? What if the most dangerous people in your life don't hide behind anger or obvious deception, but behind warmth, charm, and generosity? Niccolò Machiavelli spent years surrounded by powerful men who smiled at each other in public while secretly plotting against one another in private. Watching those political games taught him a lesson that still applies today. People rarely reveal their true intentions through their words. Instead, they reveal them through their patterns, their timing, and most importantly, through what they stand to gain. This is where most people fail. They listen to promises instead of studying motives. They believe what someone says instead of asking why that person wants to be believed in the first place. That single mistake has ruined friendships, relationships, careers, and even entire nations. Ask yourself one simple question whenever someone says something that sounds too perfect. What does this person gain if I believe them? That question instantly shifts your focus away from appearances and toward incentives. And incentives rarely lie. Modern psychology often encourages people to study body language, crossed arms, wandering eyes, nervous laughter. While those signs can sometimes reveal emotion, they don't reliably expose intention. A skilled manipulator can rehearse confidence, fake sincerity, and master every gesture. But they struggle to fake consistency over time. Imagine a coworker who enthusiastically offers to help you during an important meeting. Everyone admires their generosity. They earn praise from the entire room. But once the meeting ends and no one is watching anymore, their help suddenly disappears. That wasn't kindness. It was reputation management. You were never the priority. You were simply the audience. Machiavelli understood something most people never learn. One impressive act tells you very little about someone's character. Repeated actions across different situations reveal everything. So from this moment forward, stop asking whether someone sounds sincere. Instead, watch whether their behavior stays the same when recognition disappears, when praise no longer exists, and when helping you offers them absolutely nothing in return. Because genuine loyalty never needs an audience. Only performance does. Most people don't get manipulated because they're unintelligent. They get manipulated because they're trained to judge moments instead of patterns. One kind gesture, one heartfelt conversation, or one generous favor is often enough for someone to earn trust. But Machiavelli believed trust should never be built on isolated moments. It should be built on repeated evidence. Think about the people you've admired throughout your life. Chances are, many of them made a great first impression. They knew exactly what to say, how to act, and how to make you feel important. But first impressions are performances. Anyone can rehearse a performance. Character, however, cannot be rehearsed forever. This is why time is the greatest lie detector ever created. A manipulator can pretend for a day. They can even pretend for months if the reward is valuable enough. But maintaining a false identity is exhausting. Eventually, the mask slips. The question is whether you're paying attention when it does. Watch what happens when circumstances change. Observe how someone behaves when they're under pressure, when they're disappointed, or when helping you no longer benefits them. Those moments reveal far more than 100 conversations ever will. Machiavelli constantly studied the behavior of rulers and advisors. He noticed that loyalty often disappeared the moment power shifted. The same principle exists in everyday life. Some people remain close only while your success benefits them. The moment your influence fades or your usefulness declines, they quietly disappear without explanation. That isn't betrayal happening overnight. It's hidden intention finally becoming visible. One of the simplest tests you can apply is surprisingly effective. Remove the audience. Notice who still supports you when nobody is watching. Notice who keeps their promises when there's no recognition to gain. Notice who speaks well of you when you're not in the room. Real character survives privacy. False character depends on attention. This is why consistency matters more than charisma. Charm can capture your attention, but consistency earns your trust. One impressive act means almost nothing if it isn't followed by another, and then another. From now on, stop collecting promises. Start collecting patterns. Because people rarely become someone different over time. They simply become harder to pretend. Not every lie sounds like a lie. In fact, the most convincing manipulators rarely tell obvious falsehoods. Instead, they arrange truthful statements in a way that leads you to the wrong conclusion. They understand that if they can control your interpretation, they never have to tell a direct lie at all. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He knew that power often belonged to those who could shape perception rather than reality. Most people listen only to what is being said. Very few stop to ask why it is being said that way. Pay close attention to how someone answers difficult questions. When an honest person is asked something direct, they usually give a direct answer first. Any explanation comes afterward, but someone trying to manage your perception often reverses the order. They begin with a long explanation, adding unnecessary details, emotional context, or excuses before they've even answered the question itself. That delay isn't always proof of deception, but it is often proof of calculation. Another signal is selective language. Listen for phrases like, "to be completely honest," or "technically that's true," or "I don't really remember." These expressions aren't necessarily lies, but they create distance between the speaker and the truth. They leave room for retreat if their story is later challenged. Machiavelli believed that people reveal themselves through consistency, and language is no exception. If someone's story changes depending on who they're speaking to, you're no longer looking at honesty. You're looking at strategy. Notice how they describe the same event to different people. Do certain details disappear? Do they suddenly become the victim in one version and the hero in another? If the story constantly changes to suit the audience, the words are no longer serving the truth. They're serving an objective. This doesn't mean you should become suspicious of every conversation. It means you should become more observant than reactive. The goal isn't to catch people lying. The goal is to understand the motive behind the words they choose. Because once you begin listening for intention instead of emotion, you'll notice something remarkable. People rarely expose themselves through what they say. They expose themselves through what they carefully avoid saying. And sometimes, silence reveals more than any sentence ever could. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that deception always looks intentional. They imagine manipulators as cold, calculating individuals who know exactly what they're doing. But Machiavelli understood a far more dangerous reality. Many people don't simply wear a mask, they become the mask. Over time, people repeat the same performance so often that it becomes part of their identity. The generous person begins believing they're genuinely selfless. The loyal friend convinces themselves they're always supportive. The caring partner sees their controlling behavior as protection. Eventually, the line between image and reality becomes so blurred that even they can't tell the difference. That's what makes these people so convincing. They're not acting nervous because they don't feel dishonest. They're acting exactly as they believe they should. And because they believe their own story, your instincts often fail to detect the hidden agenda beneath it. This is why intuition alone isn't enough. Your instincts are excellent at noticing obvious danger, fear, anger, guilt, or discomfort, but they struggle against someone who has completely justified their own self-interest. When control feels like love in their mind, or manipulation feels like helping, there are no obvious signs for your gut to detect. Machiavelli never relied on feelings alone. He relied on outcomes. Instead of asking what someone intended, ask yourself what actually happened because of their actions. Did their advice genuinely improve your life? Or did it make you more dependent on them? Did their support make you stronger? Or did it quietly increase their influence over your decisions? Did their kindness continue when there was nothing left for them to gain? Results rarely lie, even when people do. Here's a simple test you can use in everyday life. The next time someone tells you they're doing something for your own good, politely refuse. Don't argue. Don't explain. Just decline. Then watch what changes. Someone who truly cares about you may be disappointed, but they'll still respect your choice. Someone with hidden motives will often become frustrated, distant, defensive, or even guilt you into changing your mind. Their reaction isn't revealing your character. It's revealing theirs. Because genuine care respects your freedom. Manipulation fears losing control. One of the most dangerous forms of manipulation doesn't begin with threats or intimidation. It begins with kindness. It begins with someone making you feel seen, understood, and important long before they've truly earned a place in your life. Machiavelli understood that trust is one of the most valuable forms of power. The faster someone gains it, the less time you have to judge their character. That's why skilled manipulators don't slowly build relationships. They accelerate them. Have you ever met someone who, within days or weeks, seemed to understand you better than people who had known you for years? They agreed with your opinions, laughed at your jokes, admired your ambitions, and somehow always seemed to say exactly what you wanted to hear. It felt natural. It felt rare. It felt like destiny. But sometimes it isn't connection. Sometimes it's strategy. Real trust is built through time. It survives disagreements, misunderstandings, disappointments, and moments when both people have nothing to gain from each other. Manufactured trust skips that entire process. It creates emotional closeness before emotional safety has ever been tested. This is exactly why fast intimacy can be so dangerous. It lowers your defenses before your judgment has had the chance to catch up. Machiavelli would tell you to pay attention whenever someone tries to rush your loyalty. Whether it's a friendship, a romantic relationship, a business partnership, or even a mentor promising to change your life, genuine people respect the natural pace of trust. Manipulative people try to outrun it. Here's a simple way to expose the difference. Slow everything down. Take your time before making commitments. Share less than you normally would. Delay important decisions. Create healthy boundaries and watch what happens. Someone with honest intentions won't mind. They'll respect your pace because their goal is the relationship itself. But someone with hidden intentions often becomes impatient. They may pressure you, make you feel guilty, accuse you of being distant, or suggest that your caution means you don't value them enough. That reaction tells you everything, because real relationships grow stronger with patience. Fake relationships depend on momentum, and the moment you stop running at their speed, the mask begins to crack. Most people think deception begins the moment someone tells a lie, but Machiavelli understood something far more dangerous. The most effective manipulators rarely depend on lies. They depend on selective truth. A complete lie can be exposed. A carefully edited truth is much harder to question. Imagine someone explaining why they missed an important meeting. Everything they say is technically accurate. Traffic was terrible. Their phone battery died. An emergency came up. Every detail can be verified. Yet one critical fact is missing. They chose to leave an hour later than they promised. Nothing they said was false, but the story was designed to lead you away from the truth that mattered most. This is how perception is controlled. Manipulators understand that people naturally assume they're hearing the whole story. Once enough true details are provided, the mind fills in the missing pieces on its own. You stop asking questions because the explanation feels complete, even when it isn't. Machiavelli knew that power often belongs to the person who controls the narrative. If someone can decide which facts you see and which facts remain hidden, they can shape your conclusion without ever forcing it. That's why you should pay close attention to people who constantly justify themselves before you've even questioned them. An honest person usually explains what happened. A manipulative person often explains why you shouldn't be upset before you've had the chance to react. Notice how quickly they defend themselves. Notice how polished their explanation sounds. If every mistake comes with a perfectly rehearsed excuse, ask yourself one question. Why was the defense prepared before the conversation even began? Preparation often reveals intention. Here's another habit worth developing. Whenever someone tells you a story, don't immediately ask whether it's true. Instead, ask yourself, what important detail could be missing? That single question changes everything. Because people who want your trust don't usually hide information behind obvious lies. They hide it behind incomplete truths that sound convincing enough to end a conversation. And remember this, the most dangerous manipulation isn't making you believe something false. It's making you believe you've been told the whole truth when you've only been shown the part that serves someone else's agenda. By now, you've probably realized something uncomfortable. The people most likely to manipulate you aren't strangers. They're often the people you've already welcomed into your life. Friends, colleagues, romantic partners, mentors, even family members. Not because they're all malicious, but because hidden intentions rarely announce themselves. They quietly grow in places where trust has already been given. This is why Machiavelli never taught people to become suspicious of everyone. He taught them to become disciplined observers. Observation is your greatest defense. The moment you stop reacting to words and start studying patterns, the balance of power changes. Manipulators survive on emotional reactions. They want you to respond quickly, trust quickly, forgive quickly, and decide quickly. The faster you move, the less time you have to notice what they're actually doing. Your greatest advantage is patience. Slow every important decision. When someone asks for your trust, don't answer immediately. When someone promises loyalty, don't reward the promise before it's been proven. When someone flatters you, enjoy the compliment, but don't let it replace evidence. Machiavelli believed that time exposes what charm hides. That's why consistent behavior is worth infinitely more than impressive words. Pay attention to how people treat those who could do nothing for them. Notice how they react when they're criticized. Watch how they behave when no one is applauding. Character is revealed most clearly when there is nothing to gain and no audience to impress. There's another habit that will completely change how you read people. Separate intentions from outcomes. Someone may genuinely claim they wanted the best for you. But what happened because of their actions? Did they leave you stronger, wiser, and more independent? Or did you become more confused, more dependent, and easier to control? People should be judged by the results they consistently create, not by the stories they tell about themselves. Once you begin living this way, something interesting happens. Manipulators stop seeing you as an easy target. They realize you aren't hypnotized by confidence. You aren't persuaded by flattery. You aren't rushed by emotion, because you've learned the lesson Machiavelli understood centuries ago. Trust is never something people deserve because they ask for it. It's something they earn through consistency, honesty, and time. And once you start demanding that standard from everyone around you, very few masks survive long enough to fool you. Everything you've learned in this video leads to one simple realization. The greatest advantage you can have in life isn't intelligence, wealth, or influence. It's clarity, the ability to see people as they truly are instead of who you hope they'll become. Machiavelli understood that most people don't lose because they're weak. They lose because they mistake appearances for reality. They trust confidence instead of character. They believe promises instead of patterns. They become attached to the image someone projects while completely ignoring the evidence that quietly tells a different story. That's why betrayal often feels so shocking. Not because the warning signs weren't there, but because we chose to explain them away. We defended behavior that should have made us pause. We ignored inconsistencies because the truth was uncomfortable. We convinced ourselves that people meant well, even when their actions repeatedly proved otherwise. But once you begin seeing through the mask, everything changes. You stop chasing approval from people who only value your usefulness. You stop confusing charm with loyalty. You stop giving unlimited trust to people who have never earned it. Most importantly, you stop allowing your emotions to overrule your observations. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you aware. Machiavelli never argued that everyone is deceptive. He argued that human beings naturally pursue their own interests. Some do it with honesty and integrity. Others do it through manipulation, appearances, and carefully crafted performances. Your responsibility isn't to become suspicious of every person you meet. Your responsibility is to become patient enough to let people reveal themselves. Watch what they do when no one is watching. Watch how they behave when life stops rewarding them. Watch whether their values remain the same when honesty comes at a cost. Because that's where character lives, not in words, not in promises, not in perfectly rehearsed performances, but in consistent actions repeated over time. The people worth keeping in your life won't fear your patience. They won't resent your boundaries. And they won't need constant opportunities to prove they're good people. Their actions will do that for them. The mask always fades. The pattern never does. At the beginning of this video, I told you that everyone you meet is running a script. Now you know the difference. Most people spend their lives watching the performance. Very few ever learn to read the person behind it. From this day forward, don't let words impress you. Don't let charm decide who deserves your trust. Watch patiently, observe consistently, and let patterns speak louder than promises. Because once you learn to see beyond the mask, manipulation loses its power and clarity becomes your greatest strength. If you enjoyed this video and want to master more of Machiavelli's timeless lessons on power, influence, and human nature, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you're ready to uncover another hidden truth that most people never notice, click the next video on your screen. Until then, remember, everyone is still running a script, but now you're the one reading it.